I am going to start with the problem. We're going to call the problem the case of the mistaken identity. How many here have ever been to one of those crazy mirror rooms in a carnival or a circus or some amusement park? You know, you stand in front of them and it feeds back to you this weird caricature of your body. I believe, literally, that most people live in a crazy mirror room, and that their sense of their identity comes from the reflection of those mirrors. And they eventually absorb that, believe it, and it becomes who they are. It becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the mirrors are all over, everywhere in society. Every institution, starting with their family, their peers, school, work, the playing field, movies, all the media, communicate in a very collective and powerful way who we are. And we are not that person. That is just a very small part of who we are. We barely tap our potential. Nevertheless, people believe this. They internalize it. And they act accordingly. And they would protest if you were to say, you are not, you are much more than that. They might say, yes, I do have that potential, but this is my nature. They've lived in that crazy mirror room. The point, of course, is they became more concerned with their images than with themselves. And so it becomes a mistaken identity. It's an incomplete understanding of self. To use the scientific term, it's an incomplete paradigm. It may be an utterly false paradigm or view of oneself. Realistically, I think all that I'm saying here comes down to the fact that most people's sense of identity and worth comes from that mirror, but the mirror's criterion is comparison. Now you think about it. Comparisons, that is, how people compare to each other in school, in work, athletics, at home. Why aren't you more like? You're the one that's really the best student, see? You're not the good one. You're not this one. You don't have these qualities. You do have them. Why? Because the experience taught you. And so you begin this labeling process. And people's sense of security starts to move outside themselves. It is not internal. It literally is external. But it is a serious problem because all of us probably have it to some degree. In fact, I'm convinced we do. Our biology and our genealogy gives us our hardware. Where do we get our software? From our sociology, from our upbringing, from the social mirror, and from our psychology, how we choose to read that and how it is put into us. It gives us our software. And can any computer act outside its hardware? No. Can it act outside its software? No, unless you bring in new software. It's totally limited by the software. And the software comes from, in our analogy, the social mirror. And it's based on comparisons to other people. Now what if we could come up with some organizing principle that would enable us to really understand our true identity and to have that come from within and to be independent of comparisons with other people? What if we could come up with a way of thinking, with a principle that would start to unleash more and more of this hidden potential, that which is dormant within us? Not just that which other people say is there, but that which no one knows is there. What if we could come up with a principle, a simple idea from which we could develop security from within so that it would become a frame of reference through which people are guided, they have a basis on which to make decisions, and it gives them wisdom because their life is balanced and they have judgment, and it also empowers them. It gives them tremendous internal courage. Courage to make things happen, to accomplish things, to take initiative, to perhaps swim upstream to become change catalysts inside families, inside marriages, inside organizations, to become a powerful change agent. I suggest we can develop such an idea. Let's put principles at the center. I'm just going to suggest a few principles. First, integrity. Second, fairness. Third, kindness. Fourth, growth. Fifth, contribution or service. Sixth, balance. Seventh, continuous improvement, getting better, continuously working on getting better. Just take those as some basic principles which we value. All right. Here is a person who is principle-centered with at least those that have been mentioned. Now, go back to the family reunion, the pressure from the work. What happens? What do? You weigh your priorities, so you're thinking, see? You're not just quickly reacting. You want to maintain your integrity. You want to have balance, which means you're not going to just capitulate totally to the family situation and ignore the fact that the client's coming into town. You start inventing third alternatives. Your mind becomes creative. What can I do? Because I need to preserve both values. What can I do to preserve both values? Now your mind thinks through, well, maybe I could, ask these people if they would meet them. Then I would come for the later part. I might even invite that person to the family reunion, to the dinner part of it. There's just a number of ways that a person would think that they really had a composite set of well-thought-through, internalized principles at the center. Look what you've done. You preserved those other values. So you have credibility. You can perhaps make some demands upon other people. Here you're saying, now wait a minute, we've got to think through. There are important values here. What can we do? You're also talking differently about the nature of your relationships. You're also talking differently about your courage. All of that implies that your security comes from an internal source, which we could say is your integrity to those principles. Now, if those principles were just expressed, let's say in some kind of personal philosophy or creed system or mission statement, if they're only expressed but not internalized through living them, through deep integrity toward them, then a person might talk principle-centered but still be work-centered, family-centered, money-centered, self-centered, or a combination-centered. How do you get those principles deep inside to where they really are the source of security, guidance, wisdom, and power? Where it does kind of in an unending way enable you to discover more and more facets of your personality, so you're not buried by this case of the mistaken identity, that you are willing to try new things, to have the courage to leave your comfort zone, to do new skills, to fail and not to feel wiped out by it, to succeed and not to see that as the last thing, see? That you look both success and failure in the eye and call them both imposters. Why? Your identity is not in your successes and your failures. Your identity is apart from those.